think we need to start. And when Alberto comes back, he can join us.
Okay.
Shall we begin with our centering exercise? Take 3 deep breaths. And with a deep in breath. Shanti, shanti, shanti. Okay, I'm going to share the screen now. And here we go. Second tier circle. I think today is May the 10th. Looks like somebody forgot to update the slide. No
Yes.
religion. Buddhadasa Bikkhu. And here he is. Buddhadasa Bikkhu. So we're going to continue our look at how to experience a void mind. How to experience a void mind. I thought I'd bring back a little visualization that we did last week. How to experience a void mind. A mind that's not ruminating, not attached to outcomes, not attached to past events, and not attached to selfish desires. I thought about this several times during the week of void mind, and whenever I noticed my mind was ruminating, I said, okay, let's examine it. What's it ruminating about right now? Some outcome it's looking forward to or concerned about, or some past event that we're rehashing, or something selfish I want. Anyone else have an opportunity to look at their mind when it was ruminating and see what sort of rumination was going on? It's useful to head towards experiencing a void mind, to look at the mind and ask yourself, is it attached to some outcome, afraid of something, or concerned of something, or looking forward to something? Or is it ruminating over some past event? Or is there something that's really just rather selfish? It's an interesting exercise to get some distance from the mind. One little baby step. I like this analogy of a car's motor. Don't know if that worked for you or not. Sometimes the mind is in forward gear, anticipating outcomes. Anticipating outcomes. Sometimes in reverse, rehashing events. So again, sometimes during the week, as my mind ran off and started thinking about things, I said, let's see, are we anticipating some outcome? Are we rehashing events? Just remembering those two possibilities, anticipating outcomes, rehashing events. Those were basically all of the things that I saw coming up. It was either anticipating outcomes or rehashing events, unless I was engaged in the present. How about the rest of you? Anyone else experience anything different when your mind ran around instead of anticipating outcomes or rehashing events?
My mind seems to be running around in my dreams.
In your dream. In your dream, is it anticipating some outcome or is it rehashing?
I don't know. The other night I dreamt I went back to work and there was somebody else in my office instead of me.
That is that's demonstrating a little fear.
I don't know. Somebody suggested that maybe it means I really should go ahead and retire.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. But like for me, anticipating outcomes is maybe like, like right now we are living in this coronavirus situation. So I am not making myself be attached to that issue out there, even though, yes, I take care of me, of myself and others around me, but I avoid to make it control my everyday actions, thinking, and doing. And concerning the other two, the going back to the past or sometimes in the present, I see that I have a little problem sticking to things in the past and bringing it to the present. So maybe, that's more likely what my position mentally.
I got it. So again, this is just another little technique we can use when our mind starts ruminating to just ask ourselves, oh, is it in forward, anticipating something that's coming, or is it rehashing events in reverse? Whenever we do this examination like this and ask yourself these questions, we're stepping back just a little bit from the mind, which is the path to avoid mind. So anticipating outcomes, rehashing events. Rare are the moments when the mind is idling in neutral, fully present in the moment. So this might be one of those times right now when the mind is in neutral, fully present in the moment as you're giving your attention to what's going on here in our meeting.
When we're meditating.
Sorry?
Or when we are meditating.
Or when we're meditating, absolutely. So we first put our cars into neutral or park, then we turn off the key. If we could put the mind into neutral through meditation, then turning it off might come more naturally. And as Albert pointed out, we can choose different techniques for putting the mind in neutral. A visualization, that's what we did last week. A mantra. I don't know about you, but when doing meditation, sometimes it's useful to put something in the mind so it doesn't run off. So you can put a visualization in your mind, like the one we did last week, the breathing one, a mantra, a repetitive passage, which is what we're going to practice today. Another way to put the mind in neutral is to fully devote your energy to doing something for others, so that your mind is fully occupied with someone else or some other persons. That's your full focus, doing something for them. So these are some of many techniques. Susan, you shared that there's a technique you use of looking for the gratitude, right? In the situation.
We're talking about the mind looking back and looking forward. I often find that I am in, it's not even a thought, it's a feeling, it's an emotion. And these days, as I said earlier, waking up with a heaviness or a negative emotion. And sometimes, or not these days, maybe it's not about the virus, but sometimes it takes having to go into that feeling and trying to figure out where that's coming from in order to address it. It's just like another layer of trying to clean that out before you can come into some sort of a settled, clear mind space or lack of thought space.
Right. I've heard that when you're experiencing that sort of heaviness that you describe, there are two ways one can go about it. I don't know which is best, but I just know there are two ways. One, like you say, is to go deeply into it, go underneath it. See if you can find out where it's coming from and what it's all about. See if it lives someplace in your body, your throat, your heart, your shoulders, and make that examination. Another technique is to put something positive in your mind, a visualization, a mantra, and get the mind busy with something else. And that's what we're going to try to do today with a repetitive passage.
Okay. Good.
And rather than giving all your energy to that, put all your energy in some positive thing. So we'll try that today, and you could apply that to that feeling of heaviness that you've had, whatever, and see if it works.
Okay. Good deal.
So we have to try on these various techniques to see what works for us to put the mind in a neutral and to bridge the mind's tendency to run about wherever it wants and the state we call a void mind. We're going to use the prayer of St. Francis. The prayer of St. Francis, to see if we can use that technique and if it's a technique that appeals to us for neutralizing the mind. Prayer of St. Francis. Now, the prayer of St. Francis is rather long. So I've divided it up into 3 different parts. First part, middle part, and the last part. And since the prayer is so rich, I thought today we'd just focus on the first part, first 5 lines, and see if we can internalize that and have that become part of us, and maybe even choose to memorize it. And once you memorize the beginning part of something, you can always build onto it and memorize more. So let's start. Questions? Here we go. What I thought we'd do first is to discuss the lines in the passage and then do a guided meditation on them. So it begins, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. What does this bring up for folks? Lord, make me an instrument of your peace.
We have to start by being peaceful ourselves before we can share it with somebody else.
Yes.
I think that there's something like, for example, you asking God to use me as you feel fit in order to bring peace.
Yeah.
Yes. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. So if we want to see peace in the world, we have to make an effort to be peaceful ourselves. So, Lord,
Steve.
yes. Hi.
Hi, Maggie.
Hi,
Hi.
Maggie.
Hi. I had some Mother's Day festivities. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late to the game.
Ah,
You deserve all of it.
It's good to see
You're
you
just
all.
in time, Maggie.
I don't know if this was what St. Francis had in mind, but the image that comes to my mind is the wind strumming a stringed instrument and just the wind making up a very peaceful sound with a harp or something. That's what comes to mind.
That's beautiful.
Very beautiful. So that's taking this saying and having it transform into a visualization. And whenever we do a visualization, it's a wonderful way to put our minds in neutral. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. When I see this, I think to myself, well, sometimes I'm not peaceful. I don't feel peaceful about something, but I can resolve not to let that be who I present myself as. That I keep my presentation of myself as peaceful, so that I can be a peaceful example. Make me an instrument of your peace. So keep in mind whatever came up for you here, because we're going to bring that back to mind when we repeat these phrases together. Let's do the next one. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. What comes up for people? We experienced hatred any place on social media, individual people we've met. And how do we go about bringing love? Yes.
Sometimes the visualization's helpful there too. You try to look through the hatred and see the perfection in it.
So we can look through the hatred and see some perfection underneath, so that we bring
Ow.
love.
Well, you
We
look,
could-
you look at every human being and know that someplace that they are actually perfect and it's out picturing as something else. But that, I guess it's a mental process to know that whatever it is it's spewing, venom that's spewing out, has its own purpose, and we might not know what that is. Maybe it's to have us examine our own beliefs or strengthen our own beliefs or give us something to do, but just assuming that it
Good. So we look underneath the hatred. And when we bring love, the sort of love that I believe is talked about here is the love which has three components. Let me bring respect. So where there's hatred, let me bring respect. I think that's what you're saying, Susan. Let me respect that there's something going on here. First component is respect. Second is generosity. Where there's hatred, let me bring a spirit of generosity to what's going on here. In other words, looking at it in the brightest light instead of the darkest light. Respect, generosity. The third component of this sort of love is compassion. Where there's hatred, can we have some compassion for the moccasins that this person is walking in? Came from. That's what comes up for me. Like you said, Susan, it's a mental attitude of how we look at hatred, which helps us to bring this love.
we can get out of the victim mode, which is, where you just suck in all negative stuff and figure it's all against you and you have to defend against it and fight back, therefore spewing out more hatred.
Yes. Yes, certainly returning hatred for hatred isn't going to work very well.
No.
So where there's hatred, let me bring love. Let's do the next one.
For me, no. Okay.
Go ahead, Albert.
No, I was saying it's like in that paragraph, and that sentence there, where there is hatred, let me bring love. It's like look at the positive. There's always positive in the bad. So let us look at the good thing, and then from there on, we will be better. We will be sharing love in that sense. So,
I got it. Let's do the next one. I have 5 here today. Where there is offense, let me bring pardon. Particularly when we feel the offense has been committed against us. Where there is offense, let me bring pardon. So what offense comes up for you where you have an opportunity to bring pardon? You don't have to share, but that's what I'm seeing.
This thing fits me perfectly because
Alberto?
this thing fits me perfectly because I am the person that when I feel offended, it's hard for me. My ego takes control of me, and I really have a hard time bringing pardon to those things or to the offense or to the offender, I would say.
Well, I got it. So let's say you experience an offense and your ego kicks in and you're all on it. What would it look like for you to bring pardon to that situation?
Just give in. Just let it go. Let it ride. You know.
I think for me, what seems to help is if I just remind myself not to take it personally, whatever the offense is. And
It's like the third agreement.
yes,
Don't
exactly.
take it personally.
Yeah.
Because it's from whoever it's coming from. It has nothing to do with you.
Right. And maybe at some level, it doesn't, whatever they're doing, isn't coming from their authentic, real self.
Mm.
Yes, it's not coming from the authentic self. Actually, I experience that there's two sorts of offenses I experience. One is an offense that's intended. Someone wishes to offend me. This is rare for me. I just don't encounter that very much. Often the offense that I experience is someone was just being themselves and do what they do, and I was offended by it. I took it personally.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So like you said, to not take it personally is an opportunity for us to step into pardon. And there's two people that need to be pardoned when there's an offense, right?
Right. And remembering that forgiveness is something that you do for yourself.
There you go. So maybe we have to pardon ourselves first, and then we can pardon the others. What do you think about that, Alberto?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. That's a very good point.
So when our ego kicks in, we take offense. Maybe if we can learn how to forgive ourselves for our God-given reactions that are just part of us and that seem to pop up. And by pardoning ourselves, maybe that will open some space to pardon the others. What do you think?
Yep. I agree with that. Mm-hmm.
So we can use these to help us when the mind gets a little off kilter. Let's do the next one. Where there's discord, let me bring union. Particularly in a family situation.
Yeah.
That is so much easier when somebody's not attacking you personally. It goes back to the one before, and it's just not easy, when somebody's messing with your ego and intentionally trying to put you in a lower position.
Well, that's what family's for, Susan.
Yeah, I'm feeling it. All right.
That's what my sister tells me.
Yeah.
She said, Steve, you're so nice to everybody all the time. Whenever you get around me, you always like to. I don't know, stick it to her or something. Said, well, it's family, dear. I'm just used to it from when we were little kids. She pardons me, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's discord, what would it look like for us to bring union to a situation of discord?
some of that is just being there and being who you are, because your energy goes out into the room. One thing you can't do one thing that does not work is let two people fight through you. You ever had that experience? You've got two people and they're mad at each other, but yet they don't want to take the responsibility of confronting each other, so they complain to you, and you're supposed to complain to the other person, and then it goes back.
Yeah, that's called triangulation.
Yeah, boy.
It goes on a lot.
So the tough thing in that situation I'm hearing is, are we going to buy into a particular position or not?
Yeah, you learn not to do that.
Right.
And that's a tough thing because our reactive minds set in when there's a discord. So can we train ourselves when we hear that discord, instead of chiming in with our own opinions, to be in neutral and stick to something like, well, I hear you. I got it. I understand what you're saying. You know, your position is clear to me.
But this one goes back to this: where there is discord, let me bring union, with this desire to bring union, to desire to bring peace. But also recognizing that sometimes what's going on is not ours to do. It's not ours to solve this situation, but maybe to help direct somebody else, I don't know.
Right, so it's not our job to fix things or people. So I don't see bringing union as making other people go from discord to union. That would be fixing them. So what would it look like for us to bring union without doing anything?
Sometimes it's just listening to people, not judging them, and being loving.
I got it.
And putting the responsibility back where it belongs. It's not mine. This is not mine to do, and to allow other people to solve their own problems.
Yes. So if we can look at discord through the eyes of union, noticing if we have some reactions, but not letting the reactions run us, and just looking at the discord through, like, we hear it through the eyes of love.
It's like you're talking about your neighbor being your biggest teacher. The grumpy old lady who lived near you.
I know, she taught me a lot.
And that was a discord that was helpful. Learning experience.
I have a new teacher that showed up unexpected. It's a person from high school that apparently I had some old issues with. Here I am in my 80s, and this person got in contact with me and rose some discord, and I got reactivated. So I'm asking myself, this person must be a brand new teacher come to help me go through some ancient issues that never got put to bed.
Nice.
Where there is error, let me bring truth. So this is interesting. Sometimes we experience error, but is it appropriate for us to fix someone else by saying, well, you got it wrong there. Let me tell you what's true. You're wrong and I'm right. That doesn't sound like what this is getting at. Where there's error, let me bring truth. So how do we go about that?
Maybe in the way that you lead your life, instead of necessarily telling people that there's an error, just leading a good life.
Lead by example.
Yeah, that shines forth the truth.
Right, so leading by example, letting our truth be a light shining all by itself, so that we give people the respect and the generosity to see error, if there's error there for them, when they're good and ready. So bringing truth, I think, has an element of patience in it. Our patience to do what's right and live our truth. And when other people are ready to go from something we see as error, then they'll be ready. Or maybe we will change and notice what we thought was error was something different.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's a deeper truth that we have to look for in ourselves through patience.
Yeah.
All of these take a lot of patience.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of
Mhm.
patience. Well, we have, go ahead, Susan.
Now, I was going to say sometimes that if we wait for some inspiration, then something will come to light that will actually alter the atmosphere in the room. If you're in a discussion and you get a hit that you can see something differently and state that, well, what do you think about such and such? And it could be enlightening and change the atmosphere of the situation. I'm brought to mind this, what we're dealing with all of the things out there with this virus. There's a lot of stuff that just sounds awful, and I just don't really believe. And then somebody else is going to pop up with some better information. So then you have another something else to listen to, and you can make your own decision about what you want to believe.
Sounds like we need to remember our three treasures: simplicity, patience, and compassion.
Compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Simplicity, patience, and compassion. Well, we have all these little techniques. This is just about the first third of St. Francis's prayer. Maybe we can look at the rest another time, but I'd like to go through a little exercise now to help us internalize this. Are we ready to do that?
Yes.
So let's do it like this. We've done this before. I'll repeat one of the lines, then we'll repeat it together in unison. And then a third time, repeat it to yourself and see if any of our discussion brings up something for you. Are we ready?
Mhm.
Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Together. Lord,
Lord,
Make
make me an instrument
of
of
your
your
peace.
peace.
silently to yourself. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Together. Where there
There
is
is
hatred,
hatred.
let me
Let me
bring love.
Bring love.
And silently to yourself. Where there is offense, let me bring pardon. Together. Where there is
There is
offense,
offense.
let me
Let me
bring
bring
pardon.
pardon.
Silently to yourself. Where there is discord, let me bring union. Together. Where
Where
there
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 is
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 discord,
discord.
let me bring
Union.
silently to yourself. Where there is error, let me bring truth. Together. Where
There's
there's
air,
air, let
let
me
me
bring
bring truth.
truth silently to yourself. We're going to go on now, keeping in mind how this passage has affected us, any use we can make of it, and see how it applies to the rest of Buddhadasa's comments. Any
Okay.
comments or observation before we press on?
I just wanted to say everything that follows the first line is sort of like that's like your thesis statement, and everything else is what being an instrument of peace is.
Mhm.
What a wonderful mantra. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace.
What came to me in this, looking at this, was to not, when you have a situation, to not to join in, buy in, and perpetuate the story.
He has to be a loving, compassionate observer.
Mhm.
Another way to use the first line as a mantra is in the way that we have sung it in church. Make me an instrument, Lord, of your peace.
Yeah.
Either way. So let's take this exercise now and look at it through the light of what Buddhadasa teaches us. Avoid mind. There's a short verse of mine, or his, which he'd like to discuss. Do all kinds of work with a mind that is void. We'll look at that today. And then later we'll look at, and to the voidness, surrender all the fruits. Eat the food of voidness as the holy ones do. You'll have died to yourself from the very start. Sort of like a resurrection. So let's take the first line of this verse and take a look at it. Do work of all kinds with a mind that is void. Make me an instrument, Lord, of thy peace. And so on. When I just sing that, my mind goes void all of a sudden, occupied with that mantra. So do all kinds of work with a mind that is void. That we should do every kind of work with a void mind is a warning. It's a warning. In other words, not doing every kind of work with a void mind has some issues. And he's going to point out the issues, which might be something we've experienced, not having done our work with a void mind. So see if this is true for you. That the busy and agitated mind, which jumps into things with attachment, so we get annoyed when someone offends us, or attached to that annoyance, always becomes dark and clouded with delusion. It's full of worries and fears and becomes gloomy and insecure. Reminds me of the darkness that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
The busy and agitated mind jumps into things with attachment, always becomes dark and clouded with delusion. It's full of worries and fears. Oh my goodness, I've got some worries these days I need to put in their proper perspective. Dr. Fauci is self-isolating. Oh my goodness. So in that sense, my mind in that instant is gloomy and insecure. And as we've learned earlier, dies. In Dhamma language has a death, that moment, until I can resurrect it. Even though there may be intelligent, nope, talking to us folks, the intelligent people, even though there may be intelligent, talented, no, that's us, and sophisticated people, wow, that describes our group perfectly. Who do important work? Well, we're doing important work and earn a great deal of money. Not everybody. They will still end up being confined to bed with nervous breakdowns, ulcers, and other disorders caused by insecurity and anxiety.
Yep.
So our darknesses, insofar as we don't have positive techniques to deal with them, all the things that St. Francis talked about, can make us nervous. We may not have a breakdown, but we may head in that direction. We may get ulcers. We may not have them, but we may know people who do have them. And there are disorders caused by a feeling of insecurity. Why me, Lord? And anxiety. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen in the future? So these are some of the afflictions when you don't have a void mind. He's trying to encourage us with the negativity to head towards a void mind. All of these illnesses began with attaching and clinging to selfish desires. I, mine, so on. Now he's gonna give us a list of some selfish desires now. So these illnesses of not having a void mind are a result of us attaching and clinging. Well, here's the list. His list.